At a time when brutality defined conquest, one man changed the rules of war. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, didn't just defeat crusaders. He earned the respect of kings, knights, and enemies alike. Richard the Lionheart called him the greatest and most powerful leader in the Islamic world. But who was Saladin really? A holy warrior? A political genius? Or a symbol of justice in a brutal age? In this episode, we go beyond the battlefield into the heart of the man who brought Jerusalem back under Muslim rule. Without vengeance, without slaughter, just power wrapped in mercy. Saladin was not born in a palace or into power. He was born in 1137 in the fortress town of Tikrit in what is now Iraq. Though history remembers him as a champion of the Islamic world, he was not Arab, but Kurdish. His family belonged to a military elite, but not a ruling class. From the start, Saladin's life was shaped by the frontiers of empires, born at a crossroads of conflict and culture. He came of age under the mentorship of Nur ad-Din, the powerful ruler of Syria and a fierce advocate of Sunni unity. Under Nur ad-Din's guidance, Saladin learned not just the art of war, but the ideals of leadership, justice, mercy, and service to a higher cause. These weren't empty virtues, they were the foundation for reclaiming lands from the Crusaders. In the school of Nur ad-Din, Saladin was more than a soldier. He became a statesman in training. During the Second Crusade, while Europe sent knights by sea and sword, Saladin was learning strategy in shadows, quietly rising through the ranks. Unlike his enemies who glorified brute force, Saladin became known for his intelligence, patience, and a deep religious conviction that would define his every decision. His legend wasn't born in violence, it was forged in discipline and restraint. After centuries of conquests and rival dynasties, the Islamic world was in pieces. From Damascus to Cairo, power was split between rival caliphates, warlords, and foreign influences. Egypt was under the control of the Shi'ite Fatimid Caliphate. Syria, meanwhile, was dominated by Turkic rulers under the nominal control of the Seljuks. And while the Crusaders marched from the west, Muslims were too busy fighting each other to unite against a common threat. But then came Saladin, a man not born into royalty or a powerful tribe, but into a fractured world. His genius didn't begin on the battlefield. It began with diplomacy. He patiently built alliances, softened old rivalries, and used marriage, negotiation, and religious legitimacy to draw disparate Muslim factions together. It wasn't easy. His rise in Egypt had been seen as suspicious. Some thought him too ambitious, too eager. But Saladin was methodical. After the death of Nur ad-Din, his former mentor, Saladin moved quickly to take control of Syria, but not by brute force, by legitimacy and persuasion. He presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a servant of God restoring Islamic unity, a revival of the Ummah. By 1186, for the first time in decades, most of the Muslim world, Egypt, Syria, parts of Iraq, and the Hijaz, had been brought under one banner. Not through terror, not through chaos, but through strategy, patience, and a vision far beyond war. By 1187, Saladin had done what few thought possible. He had unified much of the Muslim world and was now poised to reclaim the most contested city in religious history, Jerusalem. The Crusaders had held it for nearly a century, and to them, it was not just land, it was divine destiny. But Saladin saw Jerusalem through another lens. To him, it was a symbol of justice denied, of faith desecrated, and of a dream long deferred. The stage was set after his monumental victory at the Battle of Hattin, where his forces decisively crushed the Crusader army, capturing key leaders, including King Guy of Lusignan. With the Crusaders crippled and morale shattered, Saladin marched toward Jerusalem not just with military might, but with the weight of centuries of Islamic longing. Yet what made Saladin legendary wasn't just the siege, but what came after. Unlike the brutality that marked the Christian capture of Jerusalem in 1099, Saladin offered terms of peaceful surrender. Civilians were spared, hostages were ransomed, and holy sites were protected. Even the Christian cross that had been hoisted over the Dome of the Rock was removed with care, not rage. Saladin proved that true victory wasn't in bloodshed, but in mercy. He stepped into Jerusalem not as a conqueror, but as a guardian of faith, offering safe passage, dignity, and honor to his enemies. In that moment, he didn't just win a city, he won the respect of the world. As the Third Crusade raged on, two towering figures emerged to define it. Saladin, the warrior sultan who had reclaimed Jerusalem, and Richard the Lionheart, England's formidable king with unmatched battlefield ferocity. Though vastly different in origin and culture, both men were renowned for their courage, strategy, and chivalry. Their clashes weren't just about land, they were about legacy, faith, and honor. While Richard landed in the Holy Land with blazing zeal and a thirst for conquest, Saladin remained the patient defender, guarding the spiritual heart of Islam. Their confrontations at battles like Arsuf and Jaffa were ferocious, but beneath the clash of swords was an undercurrent of mutual respect. Saladin admired Richard's battlefield prowess, and Richard, in turn, respected Saladin's leadership and mercy. There were no taunts, no desecration, only the harsh business of war. Remarkably, when Richard fell ill, Saladin offered him his personal physician. In another moment, Saladin returned captured crusaders without ransom. It was war with an unusual sense of nobility, rare in an age known for brutality. Despite the intensity of their encounters, neither Saladin nor Richard emerged as the ultimate victor. Richard recaptured several key coastal cities, but he never reclaimed Jerusalem. Saladin held the Holy City, but was forced to yield territory along the Mediterranean. After years of bloodshed, both leaders agreed to the Treaty of Jaffa in 1192, which allowed Christian pilgrims safe access to Jerusalem while maintaining Muslim control. It was not just a peace treaty, it was a testament to compromise between two giants who recognized the futility of endless war. Saladin's final years were marked not by war, but by wisdom. After reclaiming Jerusalem and fending off the Crusaders, he turned his focus inward, redistributing wealth, strengthening civic infrastructure, and ensuring justice was upheld in his territories. He refused to build grand palaces for himself, instead investing in mosques, schools, and hospitals. Even as his health declined, he remained deeply committed to the ideals of humility, service, and unity. He died in 1193, leaving behind only a few dinars and no fortune, proof of a life spent for others, not himself. When news of Saladin's death spread, grief erupted not just in the Muslim world, but also among some of his former Christian foes. He was remembered as a just and noble enemy, one who showed mercy in war and treated captives with dignity. People of all faiths admired his restraint, courage, and deep moral character. In a world plagued by brutality, Saladin had emerged as a beacon of honor. His funeral was attended by rich and poor, warriors and scholars, all mourning not just a sultan, but a symbol of justice. Centuries later, Saladin's name still resonates. Not merely as a warrior, but as a man who dared to lead with principle. In both Islamic and Western historical accounts, he is one of the few figures admired across religious divides. His legacy shaped Islamic leadership ideals for generations. Statues of Saladin stand today in Damascus and Cairo, not as symbols of conquest, but of justice and unity. In a fractured world, his story reminds us that real power lies not in domination, but in the strength of mercy, wisdom, and restraint. If you thought you knew the Crusades, think again. Saladin's story is one the West tried to bury, but history remembered. Subscribe to Forgotten Realms for more untold legends.